sense of humor kicked in, and she felt the corners of her mouth quiver. His brows slammed together, and those deep-set eyes regarded her without a speck of amusement. Obviously, the stud muffin didn't share her problem with inappropriate levity. Swallowing the small bubble of hysteria that was rising inside her, she plunged on without correcting herself. At least that one part of her vows would be honest, because he was certainly an awful husband for her. At that moment, her mental block finally evaporated, and his last name leaped into her mind. Markov. Alexander Markov. He was another of her father's Russians. As a former ambassador to the Soviet Union, her father, Max Petrov, had close ties with the Russian community, both here and abroad. His passion for his ancestral homeland was even reflected in the decor of the room where they stood, with its bold blue walls, so common in that country's residential architecture, yellow-tiled stove and multicolored kilim rug. To her left, a walnut cabinet held vases of Russian cobalt, as well as crystal and porcelain pieces from the Imperial Works in St. Petersburg. The furniture was a mixture of Art Deco and 18th century that somehow worked. Her bridegroom's large hand lifted her own much smaller one, and she felt its strength as he shoved a plain gold band on her finger. "With this ring I thee wed," he said in a stern, uncompromising voice. She gazed at the simple band with momentary confusion. For as long as she could remember, she'd indulged in what her mother Laney had called a bourgeois fantasy of love and marriage, and she'd never imagined anything like this. "The power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce that you are husband and wife." She tensed as she waited for Judge Rinsettler to invite the bridegroom to kiss the bride. When he didn't, she knew her father had asked him not to, sparing her the embarrassment of being forced to kiss that hard, unsmiling mouth. It was exactly like her father to have remembered a detail that no one else had thought to consider. Although she wouldn't admit it for the world, she wished she were more like him. But she wasn't even able to handle the major events of her life, let alone the details. It wasn't in her nature to wallow in self-pity, so she shook it off as her father came forward to brush his cool cheek against hers in ceremonial fashion. She found herself hoping for a word of affection, but she wasn't surprised when she didn't get it. She even managed to look unaffected as he moved away. He drew her mysterious bridegroom toward the windows that looked down over Central Park, where they were joined by Judge Rinsettler. The other witnesses to the ceremony were the chauffeur, who tactfully disappeared to attend to his duties, and her father's wife, Amelia, with her frosted blonde hair and lockjaw drawl. "Congratulations, dear. What a beautiful couple you and Alexander make. Don't they look wonderful together, Max?" Without waiting for an answer, Amelia swept Daisy into her arms, enveloping both of them in a cloud of musky perfume. Amelia acted as if she felt a genuine fondness for her husband's bastard daughter, and even though Daisy knew her real feelings, she gave Amelia credit for trying. It couldn't be easy to confront the living evidence of the only irresponsible thing her husband had ever done, even if he'd done it 26-odd years ago. "I don't know why you insisted on wearing that dress, dear. It might be appropriate for club hopping, but hardly for a wedding." Amelia's critical gaze passed stern judgment on Daisy's expensive metallic lace tank dress that ended in a scalloped hem a good 8 inches above her knee. "It's almost white." "Gold isn't white, dear, and it's much too short." "The jacket is conservative," Daisy pointed out, smoothing her hands along the sides of the boxy gold satin jacket that fell to the top of her thighs. "That hardly makes up for the rest. Why couldn't you have gone along with tradition and worn white, or at least chosen something more sedate?" Because this wasn't going to be a real marriage, Daisy thought, and the more she bowed to tradition, the more she remembered that she was violating something that should be sacred. She'd even removed the gardenia Amelia had fastened in her hair, only to have her stepmother stick it back in just before the ceremony. She knew Amelia didn't approve of her gold shoes either, which looked like a pair of Roman gladiator sandals with 4-inch heels. They were brutally uncomfortable, but at least they couldn't be confused with the traditional white satin pumps. "Your bridegroom doesn't look happy," Amelia whispered.